Hello, I'm Connor Al4K. It's Sunday, the 2nd of October. You're watching 6 News. Our top stories tonight. Inside the Beehive, we speak to one of Australian political Twitter's biggest users about misinformation spreading during the political campaign and viral comments from an ABC host that she's now labelling a slur. Also, the Victorian Electoral Commission responds to 6 News as the November election gets closer, but seemingly little progress is made in the registration of a dozen parties attempting to run. Fallout continues from the Optus cyberattack, with the telco now taking out full-page newspaper ads to apologise, as they warn former Virgin Mobile and Gomo customers that they too may also be affected. And hundreds of thousands left without power, as South Carolina becomes the latest US state hit by Hurricane Ian, with reports emerging of at least 20 people dead in Florida. Good evening. If you've been on social media in the past 10 months, it's probably been impossible to escape people talking about Australian politics, from daily trending hashtags to viral tweets from the Electoral Commission. Some believe it's changed the federal election conversation. Others, though, couldn't disagree more, believing sites like Twitter had very little or no impact on the way people voted, with previous global research also reflecting that. Belinda Jones is one of Australian political Twitter's biggest users. She's a Labor member with over 45,000 followers and has received plenty of support for her views, but also lots of criticism, only recently facing backlash from across the political spectrum for telling someone not to F with her after they made a TikTok responding to her view that businesses shouldn't be open on the national mourning for the Queen. There's a lot to unpack, so 6 News chief anchor Leonardo Puglisi spoke to Jones going inside the Beehive.
There were claims like, Morrison could delay the election, which is absurd. He couldn't, and that they were just being shared widely by some large accounts. I don't believe you in particular, but they were out there. So did you do anything to try to dispel that? Whether that be retweeting an article that was fact checking it, because there was just a lot of people believing it, and it seemed that while it did come from all sides misinformation during the campaign, there was quite a bit coming from pro-Labor corners.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of concern, because even prior to finding out about Morrison and the multiple ministries, I think there was an underlying current within the Australian electorate that things were being done differently under Morrison, and there was concern about how politics was being done at that stage. And I can't recall, adding weight to conspiracy theories like that. But perhaps I may have liked or shared a tweet that had that information in it. I can't be 100% sure, but I certainly didn't actively encourage that we weren't going to have an election. But I did also believe it wasn't beyond the realms of possibility with the way Mr. Morrison was acting.
I mean, it kind of was beyond the realms of possibility. It was impossible. It couldn't constitutionally happen. I mean, apart from maybe I think one house could technically be delayed, but there hadn't been a split Senate election since like the 70s or something. It was out of the realms of possibility. It really couldn't happen.
Yeah, well, I think we had come through the pandemic, and we didn't think we would be locked down, or we didn't think we'd have a national cabinet, or we didn't think premiers would be basically telling the Prime Minister how to run things. And so I think we were all examining what conditions that we all took very much for granted for a very long time. And, we didn't think the Governor General would sign off in secret to the Prime Minister having multiple ministries. So I think it was a sign of the times. I think people were worried. Now, whether that was constitutionally possible, that is another matter. But they were worried about Mr. Morrison and his way of running things.
Sure. Now, something else you've been talking about, and I think a lot of people have been talking about, was some interesting hot mic comments from the ABC's David Spears after insiders on Sunday morning. I think you called him a slur on social media users. Spears said, and there's video going around if anyone wants to see it. It's fully available on Twitter and I think YouTube as well. He said, there are hundreds of thousands of people watching the show, which is true. Look at their ratings. I think they've been going decently well. And there's probably, less than that complain. Is he really wrong?
Well, I think the two groups are not mutually exclusive. The people who are social media users and followers on social media of insiders are also the viewing audience he's talking of. And if you insult one, you insult the other. And, Australia has a very, very small population of politically engaged people, and particularly the ones on Twitter, more so, I would say, they're more informed and more engaged on Twitter through the Ozpol site and the Insiders site. And we are very critical, but we are used to the very high standard of Barry Cassidy that he left. And over the years, we've noticed sections of the Australian media do have difficulty with engaging with a politically engaged audience. They seem very thin-skinned. There's quite a few ABC people who deleted their accounts. But then there are other members of the Australian journalistic community who do engage well. And Patricia Carvelis comes to mind. She often engages. We've been called sewer rats. And sure, there are some people on who do troll and say negative things, but the vast majority of people on the Ozpol site are good people who are engaged, politically engaged, and they are the audience who is watching insiders, who are watching political programs. And it would be like if David Spears said, "Oh, all women are horrible," or "all Jewish people are horrible," or "all people from France are horrible." He has made a slur, and it's generalised against a large cohort of people, and it's not true, and it's not correct, and he should retract it and apologise to his audience, who are the ones who are engaged in this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you think the comments saying there's, voices on Twitter who complain about insiders a lot, it's on the same level as anti-Semitism?
Well, in terms of a generalisation, I was like saying that, he has slurred every social media user. And yes, some of them may be horrible. That may be true, but that's not my experience of social media, particularly not the Ozpol site. It's a lovely community of people.
I don't want to rush through this, but, we do have limited time. So I just want to get to something else that you said in May, which I think, got some traction. You said, quote, "I barely take an effing day off, usually here about 5 to 6. I'm usually here between 9 and midnight. I hold politicians' media to account. I do what I do for free. I do it every day. I front up cop shit every effing day." I do empathise with you somewhat as someone who has copped a lot of weird comments for a variety of reasons from a variety of people for a while. But just when you mentioned not taking a day off, why not just log off? It's not compulsory to post and just.
Well, I do, but that was during that was during the election campaign, and I didn't take a day off. on there, but I often do.
Why?
But because I feel our democracy is in peril, and I feel we need to be encouraging people to talk about politics and become engaged in politics, because apathy is where democracy dies, and we're a very apathetic country. So I, even outside of social media, whenever I'm, talking to people or friends, I'm always looking for opportunities to discuss politics and engage them in politics, make them aware of what's happening, what laws are being passed, what bills are before Parliament, because as I say, a lot of people will read headlines or watch the first 5 minutes of news, and that's as far as they go. And politicians get away with a lot of nonsense because people are so apathetic. So I like to just try and engage. And if I see people who, if they genuinely ask questions, and, I'll engage with them and try and answer them as best I can, or direct them to someone who can.
You also said post-election that Twitter is a, quote, formidable force, one of many. We work together, we don't take shit. We'll continue to construct and implement new ways to break down barriers and attract votes. Attract votes towards who?
Towards the people who meet who meet the criteria for the person I'm talking to. So, say for example, I was talking to a person in North Queensland, not North Queensland, in Central Queensland, and I was unfamiliar with what candidates or who the local member was in their particular area, but that's quite irrelevant. When you get someone engaged in politics and you start to nut down what issues matter to them, then you shop for a candidate based on those issues. And you can start to tell people, well, it sounds to me like you're more progressive or conservative, so these would be your candidates, and you'd encourage them to explore beyond the binary.
And just very quickly wrapping up, I know, and I see this a lot on Twitter, I've got a couple of emojis in your display name. One I see a lot is the water droplet emoji. The drip is the drip emoji.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have that? What's a drip?
Okay, that was that was an emoji that a lot of people on Twitter have, and subsequently we would call the drips. But that refers to Watergate. Until such time as there is an inquiry, that drip will stay in my Twitter handle.
We'll leave it there. Belinda Jones, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Leo. Thanks for having me.
And for more on this special report, head to our website right now, 6newsau.com. To other news tonight, and there's just over 50 days until the Victorian state election, but of the dozen new parties currently trying to get registered, only 3 have actually so far been successful, and 3 others have pulled out of the race. The State Electoral Commission now responding to 6 News and confirming what will happen if a party doesn't get registered in time for what's shaping up to be an election like no other. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the details.
As we enter a new month, we move closer to the Victorian state election on November 26. But despite a dozen new parties trying to get registered in time, only a handful have so far been successful. The United Australia Party, Freedom Party of Victoria, and a largely unknown party, some simply called the Pets Party, are the 3 new parties registered this year. The Victorians Party was registered before it pulled out of the race, while 2 other parties applied before also choosing not to run. The New Democrats and the Independence Party, which were both set up this year by 2 upper house MPs, also currently remain unregistered. Registration also hasn't so far been successful for the angry Victorians, Australian Democrats, Family First, Family Matters Australia, Indigenous Aboriginal Party, Legalise Cannabis and Restore Democracy, sack Dan Andrews. But the Victorian Electoral Commission has confirmed to 6 News that their process of finalising outstanding applications for party registration, and they say it can take up to 4 months. Any applications in progress after November 1st will be suspended until after the election, and unregistered parties can still participate at an election, but will not be able to have their name and logo next to their candidate's name, among other things. Socialist Alliance is already backing several independent candidates, and 6 News understands that Australia One may do the same. As of today, there are 55 days to go. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Liberal MP Bridget Archer has told the Saturday paper she will leave the coalition if they vote against Labor's bill to introduce a National Anti-Corruption Commission bill, a move that, if she goes ahead with it, would see the opposition's numbers go down further. Archer has crossed the floor a number of times in the past 12 months and has now confirmed she may join the crossbench depending on her party's position on the bill. If she did leave, the Liberals would be down to 26 seats, the coalition as a whole down to 57, and the number of independents expanded to 11. Speculation has also remained about the future of Centre Alliance MP Rebecca Sharkey. She was the party's only candidate at the 2022 federal election and appears to have also called herself an independent on several occasions. Fallout tonight continues from the Optus cyberattack, with the telco now taking out full-page newspaper ads to apologise. They've also warned former Virgin Mobile and Gomo customers that they too may also be affected, as investigations remain ongoing. Reporter Austin Pollock has more.
Around 10 million Optus customers have fallen victim to one of the biggest data breaches on an Australian telco. Details such as the name, addresses, email and telephone numbers have been stolen, with some customers even having their driver's licence, passport information and Medicare numbers breached.
Australians' personal information belongs to Australians.
The criminal behind this attack has used obfuscation techniques to conceal their identity, their location and their activity.
It comes after the hacker said they no longer required the $1 million ransom and saying that no data would be sold. However, cybersecurity experts advise for customers to look out for any suspicious activity in online accounts, particularly in bank accounts. If you are contacted by anyone claiming to be Optus, do not give any information such as passwords and do not click on any links that have been sent to you via email or SMS, and to check with Optus to see if it actually is them contacting you.
Cybercrime is the break and enter of the 21st century, and we encourage all Australians to be extra vigilant about their online security.
Virgin Mobile and Gomo Mobile, who are both owned by Optus, have also confirmed that their customers' details have been leaked. If Optus does confirm with you that information such as a driver's license number has been stolen, each state and territory is offering Optus customers to replace their driver's license under certain conditions. For more information, it's best to check with your state government or transport agency online. And following calls from the Prime Minister, Optus has agreed to cover the cost of replacement passports.
They will cover the costs of replacing affected customers' passports.
And if you are going overseas, the advice is that the passport is still valid. And in some added peace of mind for users affected by this disastrous cyber attack, the AFP has launched Operation Guardian to protect customers who are most affected.
10,000 individuals who potentially had 100 points of identification released online will be prioritised.
Austin Pollock, 6 News.
Reaction continues globally after the second coup in a year in Burkina Faso. Reports of a possible coup emerged when state television was affected before armed soldiers appeared on TV to confirm Paul-Henri Damiba had been ousted as president. The new government claimed Damiba was removed due to his inability to deal with Islamist insurgents. Captain Ibrahim Traore is the country's new leader, their ninth since October 2014. Hundreds of thousands of people have been left without power as South Carolina becomes the latest US state hit by Hurricane Ian. Reports are right now emerging of at least 20 people dead in Florida as the cleanup continues there, in addition to ongoing rescues. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell is on the ground in South Carolina with more.
Yeah, a beautiful day here in the upstate of South Carolina, but just hours to our south, it is a different story. Ian came through just over the course of the last 24 hours, and while this area mostly experienced rain, the Midlands and Low Country of South Carolina, especially the Low Country, had severe impacts. Today, Governor Henry McMaster holding a news conference announcing that there was some damage in the Georgetown area, which is where Hurricane Ian made its second landfall as a Category 1 hurricane after coming up from Florida. We know that a pier was toppled over. There are flooding in the streets there in the Low Country. And so we know that the president is working with the governor, President Biden, and Governor Henry McMaster to allow for aid and resources to be available to help South Carolinians as a result of this storm. And I want to also mention that in Florida, the governor there, Ron DeSantis, working with the president as well to help the people of Florida. So politics aside, we have Democrats and Republicans all working together for the betterment of the people. And again, fortunately, this area where I am reporting from was spared. Other places weren't so lucky, and so we'll continue to follow the story from there and bring you the latest developments on the issues that are surrounding Hurricane Ian, which is no longer a hurricane, by the way, and is moving up and back out. So I'll keep you posted on the very latest. For now, from here in the U.S., I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you, Connor.
Now taking a look at what's making news on 6newsau.com right now. And a new edition of Commonwealth Knowledge is out. A look at what constitutional conventions are, why we have them and how they operate, along with some real-world examples of their successes and failures. Plus, a new fact-check going on from what we mentioned earlier, explaining how, despite being deregistered, the United Australia Party is not a dead party, and how their one senator can still represent them. And we've upgraded our page with all the Victorian election candidates. In addition to an A to Z list, you can now search by electorate, both upper house and lower house. So make sure you check that out right now. And now here's Ivan and Melly with a look at what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Tonight on WAMN News, as government revenue hits $6 billion, could Mark McGowan actually afford the $800 cost of living cash relief payment? Exclusive details coming up.
Slippery slope to racism. Indigenous advocate slams the latest entertainment precinct laws.
Police investigate the brutal slaying of a man with possible links to bikies in Angara.
Raw show draws to a close after a fantastic week of fun. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, thanks to both Ivan and Melly there. Now taking a look at tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country. Brisbane partly cloudy, 22 degrees. Sydney 18, 19 in Canberra, 21 in Melbourne. Heavy clouds in Hobart, 14 degrees there. Adelaide also heavy clouds, 23. Alice Springs 30 degrees. 22 and sunny in Perth, and in Darwin a warm but wet top of 33. Now before we go tonight, recapping the top story here on 6 News this hour. And there's just over 50 days until the Victorian state election. But of the dozen new parties currently trying to get registered, only 3 have actually so far been successful. The State Electoral Commission now responding to 6 News and confirming the process can take up to 4 months. And just before we go tonight, a reminder that we'll have a new poll up for our Patreon subscribers to see which randomly selected political party you want us to look at in brief on the next edition of Spin Check Live. You can subscribe for just $4 a month, and by doing that, you'll receive more exclusive benefits and help keep us independent. Spin Check Live will be back this Thursday at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That's 7:30 in South Australia, 7 p.m. in Queensland, 6:30 in the Northern Territory and 5 p.m. in WA. Or you can watch us anytime via catch-up on our YouTube channel. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest headlines by heading to our website 6newsau.com and by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok and Lit. Just search 6newsau to find us. Help keep us independent as well by donating just $4 a month and receive exclusive benefits. Patreon.com/6newsau. I'm Connor Alforque. Thanks for your company. Good night.